Mamlaka Broadcast Network, huh?
Yeah. I'll get right after this.
We say we're one in Jesus, but we still fight amongst Christians. But MBN, it's our mission to spread love and show you vision. And we cancel out division, and we hope that you listen, cause Mamlaka Broadcast Network brings you love and joy and love and joy. We cancel out the noise, and we giving you a voice, gives you love and joy and love and joy. We cancel out the noise, and we giving you a voice, gives you love. Yeah, gives you love, brings you love, yeah. Mamlaka Broadcast Network brings you love and joy. We cancel out the noise, and we giving you a voice,
Ambassador Victoria Esuba, I bring you greetings from Mamlaka Broadcast Network, commonly referred to as MBN. It is a privilege and an honor to be able to share with you some insights from the book of Revelation that pretty much ties up with MBN's vision statement. For we are a beacon of light, bridging the gap of division between churches, standing against freedom without morality, making this world that better place to live. Allow me to elaborate. In the book of Revelation, chapter 2, Jesus Christ is addressing the church of Ephesus from verses 1 to 7. And specifically on verse 6, he is warning the church about the Nicolaitans. He is expressing his hatred towards the deeds of the Nicolaitans. Furthermore, when he addresses the church of Pergamum from verses 12 to 17 in the same chapter, Jesus Christ once again is expressing his disapproval of the Nicolaitans. During my travels to Israel, my host, Dr. Ronnie Wessler, he taught us a principle, and he said that whenever a Jew person wanted to emphasize something, they will repeat the word twice. Therefore, if we extrapolate this principle and we bring it into these two scriptures, we can see two things. The first one is that Jesus was a Jew, and as a Jew, he was following the traditional culture of repeating a word whenever you wanted to emphasize something. And the second thing that we can see is that he was warning us against the Nicolaitans. What we need to then ask is why? Why was Jesus warning us against the Nicolaitans? What's so special about this group of people that even Jesus Christ himself was telling us to pay attention to this, pay attention to this? Well, let me begin with the word Nicolaitans itself. Its translation from the Greek means Nikolaos, and Nikolaos is a word composed of two words, the word Nikos and the word Laos. The word Nikos means to subdue or to conquer. The word Laos means the people. Therefore, if we compound these two words into one single sentence, it will mean something like the one who conquers or subdues the people. It is said that the Nicolaitans were the spiritual descendants of Nicholas of Antioch, who happened to have been ordained a deacon in the book of Acts chapter 6 verse 5 that reads, "This proposal pleased the whole group, and they chose Stephen, a man full of faith and of the Holy Spirit. Also Philip, Prochorus, Nicanor, Timon, Parmenas, and Nicholas from Antioch, a convert to Judaism." The main criteria for them to be chosen, we can find it in the same chapter 6, but in verse 3, and reads, "Brothers and sisters, choose 7 men from among you who are known to be full of the Spirit and wisdom. We will turn this responsibility over to them." In the book of Acts chapter 6 verse 5, it clearly expresses that Nicholas was a convert to Judaism. The fact that he was a convert tells us that he was not born a Jew, but had converted from paganism into Judaism. And then he experienced a second conversion from Judaism to Christianity. And from this information, we can gather the following facts concerning Nicholas. The first one, number one, is that he came from paganism and he had deep, deep pagan roots, not like the other 5 people who were ordained deacons with himself, but because they came from a pure Hebrew line. The second fact that we can deduct from this is that the pagan background that Nicholas came from meant that he had been immersed in the activities of the occult. And he was not, number 3 was that he was not afraid of opposition. And this is evidenced by his ability to change religions twice. And it will seem to indicate that he was not concerned about what people might say about him. Number 4 was that he was a free thinker and very open to embracing new ideas and concepts. Does this ring a bell? With the New Age doctrine that is sweeping across worldwide our nations, does this really ring a bell? According to the writings of the early church leaders, Nicholas taught a doctrine of compromise, implying that total separation between Christianity and the practice of occult paganism was not essential. And he had no problem whatsoever intermingling these 2 belief systems. And he saw no reason why believers could not pray to Jehovah on the one hand and then practice the pagan occult rites on the other. Excuse me. Occultism was a major force that warred against the early church. In Ephesus, the primary pagan religion was the worship of Diana, Artemis. And in the city of Pergamos, there were numerous dark and sinister forms of occultism, causing Pergamos to be one of the most wicked cities in the entire ancient world. Back then, believers were fiercely persecuted. The book of Acts depicts Paul, Apostle Paul, and Barnabas encouraging the believers to remain strong in the faith on account of the persecution that we're subjected to. I can only imagine how very hard must have been for believers, whether strong in the faith or not, to live separate lives from all the activities of paganism, because paganism was the center of life in these cities. Does this ring a bell? A converted Gentile would have found it difficult to stay away from all pagan influence. And it is no surprise that the Bible links these deeds of the Nicolaitans with the churches in these 2 occultic and pagan cities. It seems that for them, it was all right to have one foot in one world and another one in the other, and that one did not need to be so strict about separation from the world in order to be a Christian. And Jesus hated this fact because it led to a weak version of Christianity, a version without power and without conviction, a worldly type of Christianity. This kind of doctrine will result in nothing but total defeat for the Christians, for the believers, for the followers. Because when believers allow sin and compromise to be in their lives, it drains away the power in the work of the cross and the power of the Spirit that is living in them. This doctrine of lowered godly standard is so dangerous. It is so dangerous that Jesus Christ went as far as to use the example of the prophet Balaam, who taught King Balak to entice the Israelites to sin through food offered to idols and through sexual immorality. The book of Revelation chapter 2, verses 14 to 15 says, "Nevertheless, I have a few things against you. There are some among you who hold to the teaching of Balaam, who taught King Balak to entice the Israelites to sin so that they ate food sacrificed to idols and committed sexual immorality. Likewise, you also have those who hold to the teachings of the Nicolaitans. we know that when Balaam could not successfully curse the Israelites, he chose a different strategy. He went back to King Balak and told him to seduce the Israelites into unrestrained sensual living by dangling the daughters of Moab in front of their faces. And it is said that the women of Moab were the most beautiful women there was at the time. The book of Numbers, chapter 25, verses 1 to 3 says that while Israel was staying in Shittim, the men began to indulge in sexual immorality with the daughters of Moab, who invited them to the sacrifices of the gods. And the people ate, and they ate those foods, those foods offered to idols, and that sacrificial meal, and bowed down before these gods. So Israel yoked themselves to the Baal of Peor, and the Lord's anger burned against them. As you are all aware, compromise with the world is nothing but watering down the salt so much that loses its saltiness, as shown in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 13. You are the salt of the earth, but if that salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? How? For it is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. And this is, my friends, the reason why Jesus hated the doctrine of the Nicolaitans. And in NBN, we stand for always keeping the food salty, so it remains flavorsome no matter what. Thank you.